We all know that diligence plays a key role investing in property, and we know that diligence pays dividends. And when we talk about diligence, we're often talking about suburb infrastructure, population growth, debt to income ratios, what the finance industry is doing, property management and the like. But one of the things we don't speak about very often is actually pest and building reports and the inspections that have happened beforehand. And for me, it's one of the most key pieces of diligence that you can undertake when purchasing a property. So today I want to talk about 4 main points when it comes to pest and building reports. And the very first one I want to talk about is when to order the pest and building report. On the surface, that sounds like a pretty silly statement to say, is when to order the pest and building reports. But a different state, whether it be Victoria, Queensland, New South Wales, will actually predetermine when you should order the pest and building reports, just as the different modes of buying. So as an example, you might be buying private treaty, whereby you're buying through a real estate agent at a listed price, or you might be buying via an auction. So when we talk about when to order the pest and building reports, it's a really, really important stage. So let's take the auction as an example. If you're buying a property, once that hammer drops, you're committed to the contract. So if you get your pest and building after the fact, it's actually not going to help in any way, shape or form. So what I suggest is well before the auction time, as part of your diligence cycle, obtaining a pest and building inspection and the reports that follow is absolutely paramount. Now, during a private treaty process, you have that cooling off period, depending on which state that you're purchasing in, but during the cooling off period is when your pest and buildings are ordered. And it's usually around the time you put pen to paper. So once the conditions of the contract have been satisfied and you're exchanging contracts, that's when the pest and building should be ordered. So the next really important point is who to order the inspections through. Now, you can jump on Google and there'll be 100,000 different inspectors and you can ring one of them up and order your pest and building inspections. But for me, just like any other service provider, you want to be using someone that becomes highly recommended. So whether that be via organisations such as ourselves, who tend to deal with a lot of different pest and building inspectors, so we know who the good ones are from the bad, whether it be via the solicitor's recommendations. But the one thing that I would also say is never take the recommendation off the sales agent. Now, the reason I say that is because usually they have a very good relationship, and I'm certainly not suggesting anything untoward, but I want my inspector to be completely independent and working for me. Now, some of the key things I'm looking for in my pest and building inspector or inspectors is, are they long established? So have they been in the industry for a long time? Have they seen all the different types of properties and not specifically relying upon new property types or old property types, units, townhouses? I want them to be across everything. Probably the most important point for me and the key ingredient is, can I ring you up? Can I, Mr. Inspector, after I've received the reports, have a phone conversation with you and take as long as it takes for me to fully understand the report? Now, on the surface, that sounds like a pretty simple request, but not a lot of inspectors want to spend that amount of time on the phone with you. And the reason I want to spend the time on the phone is because a report is usually 100 pages long. And out of that 100 pages, there's probably 20 or so pages of worthwhile, solid information. The rest is disclaimers. So I want to be able to have a conversation with the inspector and let him tell me in a layman's terms, common sense, dumb it down approach, spelling it out very simply for me, what the report is about. Should I run? Is it as bad as it seems? How much money, loosely, is this going to cost me to repair? So now that I've ordered my reports and I've received the reports, what can I expect in the reports? Now, as I said, they're usually 100 pages long, give or take, and a lot of it's wrapped up in disclaimers, but there is some solid information there. The terminology can be quite complicated and techie and trade orientated, but if you actually just break it down into some simple steps, you'll make it very easy for yourself to understand. So the very first thing is separating the reports from the pest component to the building component. Now, the pest component is all about, generally speaking, termites. Now, active termites or termite damage. And when we look at these reports, we're looking to see if the termites are in the property structure or are they in the surrounds, and what can I do about them, or what preventative measures can I take so that the termites don't come visiting later on in the stage. So now the other part of the reports is the building reports. Now the building reports, essentially we're looking for structural issues. Is the house going to fall down? Is it going to implode on itself? Should we run away? Is it going to cost me tens of thousands of dollars to fix? So when we look at the building report, we're looking for, as I say, structural component issues, but we're also looking for the costly scenarios that might evolve. So leaking bathrooms, decks that are out of kilter or undersized building components, electrical problems, plumbing problems. All of this makes for a very solid decision going forward, because at the end of the day, if the inspection on the surface is good, but the maintenance component is going to be quite exy or heavy, well, then maybe the price isn't as good as you first thought it was. So now that we've read the reports, we've spoken to the inspector and he's given us a common sense approach on how we should interpret everything that they've found in the reports, what's the next steps? Well, clearly we have two decisions to make. One, walk away from the contract. It's going to be too expensive to fix, and there's always another deal around the corner. Or we can go on with the purchase and just cost it accordingly. So what I mean by that is, once again, we've got the report now, and we have some repairs and maintenance items. We have some termite barriers as preventative maintenance to implement or install. So we need to cost this out, and we need to break it over a period of what's required now, whether that be from a safety perspective, because you don't want to be that slumlord who doesn't take care of safety and take care of their asset, or is there maintenance that we need to do now, a preventative maintenance orientated task, such as regrouting shower bases or siliconing the wet areas or changing some light switches? Or is it something that we can do in 6 or 12 months' time? Now, the reason we might do it in 6 or 12 months' time is because it doesn't need immediate action, and it might be more cost effective for us to actually do it in 12 months' time. To conclude, make sure you carry out the pest and building inspections, because it's a vital part of the diligence. Spend the $400 to $700, because it could potentially save you hundreds of thousands of dollars in the years to come.